All right, episode 2 is all about awkward medical appointments, dealing with difficult clients, setting boundaries, opening doors to better clients, and the value of time management.
Welcome back to The Strat Show.
That's
With your
right.
host, Lee Payton, Sean Lyons.
That's right. And we're still not really sure what we're doing here, but that's all right. It's a work in progress. We're on episode number 2 yet, and these won't be released for a bit. And we were trying to think about what we could talk about today that wouldn't just be, motorcycle accidents and all the dumb shit we did over the weekend, although we do have some things to catch up on there. But today's topic, I think, will be dealing with difficult clients. And this is something that everybody will run into, of course. And sometimes it's not the client. Sometimes it's you. But sometimes it just doesn't work out. Like, if you go pick 100 people at the bar, or doesn't have to be the bar, but chances are you're not going to get along with all of them, so it doesn't always work out. But some people are more difficult than others. But before we get into all that, I had my liver ultrasound on, what day was that? Saturday? Of course, they're open on Saturday, so I had to go back in for my fatty liver. I don't know why I put that in air quotes, but it's an annual thing, and the girl said it looks the same as it did last time, which is good because there's no further damage. So surprise, but of course it was the same hot chick as last time. So I was like, this is super awkward, because you go into one of those little rooms at the radiology place, and it's like, if for some reason the lights are off in there, I don't know why. It's like it's like
kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like getting a massage, but it's not. And then she then obviously you get on the table, and you have to take your clothes off for them. Well, not all of them, but then she squirts this like warm goo on you. I mean, it's super awkward. It's super weird. And of course, like I said, she's very attractive. I don't know who to compare her to give everybody a reference point, but I was like, oh, great. And of course she remembered who I was, because, I think she read the file and saw that she was the one who did it last year. But I remember people.
Oh, this guy again. Right.
Yeah. This fucking creep is going to come in here and like talk to me. Well, we had a lot in common because we lived in the same place, Florida, for a while. And I remembered all that shit. I have a decent memory for names, faces, and people, and it's usually awkward. I think you do too. Like, sometimes you run into people and you'll remember their name and shit, and they're just like staring, and it makes for that awkward. But like later, like as I gotten older, what I do now is when I come up to people and I'm like, "Hey, Tom," I'll immediately put my hand out. I'll be like, "Hey, it's Justin Lee," whatever name I'm using that day.
Yeah.
And that way they don't feel so uncomfortable, because people are like, "Who's this fucking creep?" So.
Yeah. Well, same happens to me all the time. It's ever kind of the opposite. Where I'm good with faces, but terrible with names, right? So I'll see someone, I'm like, I know them, but I can't remember a name. So it's always my favorite trick is when you're with someone, whether it be your girlfriend, your friend, business partner, whatever. I'll immediately be like, hey, have you met Brad? Right? So then Brad, your buddy you're with, it's like, hey, I'm Brad. They're like, hey, I'm Sarah. Hey, I'm Chantel. It's like, that's your name, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. But there was this one time, actually, I was walking through the mall. And this one girl walked up. This is my buddy Kevin. This girl walked up to me. She's like, "Hey, Sean, how are you?" I'm like, good. She's like, "Hey, I had so much fun. Back when you had that party at your house and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, great!" Like we connected our chat. We started walking away. My buddy Kevin's like, "Who was that?" I'm like, "I have no fucking idea. Like, not a clue."
I love it. Well, especially where you're at now, it's like you're a half a foot taller than everybody down there in the Riviera Maya part of Mexico, and obviously you stand out. So I'm sure every day people are like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And you're like, "Okay."
Yeah, well, actually, before I record, I took off this bracelet, and I'll do the backstory about my weekend out of this. Bracelet's from the new condo we moved into. Made it so that we wear this until they get to know us and recognize us, and then we take it off. Right? We just moved into the Airbnb for 2 weeks, right? So we go to Oaxaca and then off to Colombia. But because we're new tenants there, they put these bracelets on. Within the first trip I did moving in, like, oh no, so like I don't need this anymore. Like I'm recognizable everywhere I go. Like,
no shit. That's a cool idea though. I never thought of it that way, because like especially with the turnover in an Airbnb, like the doorman's like just like waving you in, like it could be anybody, What part of town's it in? I know some people probably listening are familiar with Playa. We don't have to get into details, but
yeah, so if you know where the Walmart is in Central, right, we're on Calle 6, so basically street number 6, and in between 25th and 30th, so really close. It's a brand new building, super nice. It's a 3-bedroom penthouse condo we got. Really good deal, actually. $1,000 for 2 weeks for like a 3-bedroom condo in Central is pretty good. So, but yeah, I'll dive into my background of the weekend story too. So, oh, wait, actually, before we go to this, Justin, you kind of filled me in a bit this weekend. So, after you had this, sensual erotic time with this ultrasound, what happened after that?
Yeah, so I was getting ready to I was getting ready to go run a couple of errands, and I got a call that my girlfriend's sister's dog got attacked by the neighbor dogs. So she just moved into a new house, and there's a fence, of course, and then the neighbor dogs apparently got over the fence because fences are high, but they're resourceful when they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently there was a melee there, and they had to go to everybody's fine, but her sister got like bit on both arms because she was like laying over top of the dog trying to keep it from getting attacked by the other one. So she got bit, and the dog has a bunch of stitches, but everybody's okay. But it still fucking sucks. And the neighbors who own the dogs were like mortified because they're good people. They're like, oh my God. They were like, should we put our dogs down? And of course everybody's like, look, nobody wants it to come to that, that would be more traumatic if you did that, so they worked everything out. They're gonna pay the vet bills. They're good people, but it was just like, dude, like a beautiful fucking Saturday afternoon, and then like all this shit going on. So anyway, that threw a wrench. We were going to record that day, and that kind of threw a wrench in that. But yeah, there's like it's like we finally get a sunny day up here in this place. It's been cold, raining, and bullshit since I got back from Mexico, and it's like, hey, where's everybody at? Like, oh, one person's at the ER. The other one's, at the vet, and I did get to stop by a bar though, so that helped a little bit.
There you go. Here to calm the nerves.
Yeah, I was. Well, yeah, and I mean, like the stuff like that doesn't really affect me that much anymore after the life that I've lived. But I was like, somebody's got to drink, so what might as well be, Yeah, no, but what'd you get up to over the weekend? I know you've been busy as shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, Saturday was pretty good. I didn't really do a whole lot. We went to my girlfriend's son's piano recital, so that was really nice. You had a good discount for foods, had a couple drinks, some nice dinner, and then Sunday. So to give her a backstory or a little more information too, on the 15th of this month, we're going to Oaxaca City, which is like kind of the center of Mexico for 2 weeks. So my girlfriend's house that she's renting right now, she's going to move out on the 15th. So I go there on Sunday. It's 1 in the afternoon, like, I'm going to go to the beach, or I get some sun, go for a nice swim in the ocean. So I was excited to go sit by myself down at the beach there. And then like when I come back to the house, going to a nice cold air conditioned room. So an hour into being at the beach, I get a text me like the AC in the house just quit. I'm like, God. And like that, if you don't know anything about Mexico right now, it's 32 degrees Celsius, feels like 45 degrees Celsius and like 90 to 100% humidity. So it's just a sweat box. So I get back to the house and try to fix the AC. The whole, like in all 3 bedrooms, it's not working. In the suite, it's not working. So it's a whole system shut down. I mean, it's not a breaker issue. So I checked everything. So we texted the landlord. We're moving out already, right? And the landlord said, I can't send anyone there till at least Tuesday to come look at it. And it's Sunday, right? Because it's election weekend right now, right? So there's no liquor sales right now on the weekend. Even today, there's no liquor sales.
What kind of bullshit is that?
Well, because in Mexico, they realized that if they stop serving liquor, less people would be shit-faced, and more people would actually show up to vote. So during the elections, they actually stopped the sale of alcohol.
Right, makes sense.
That's how much Mexicans love to get drunk. Like they have to stop the sale of alcohol to encourage people to go vote for their country.
Yeah. Jesus.
Interesting. So I mean, I don't like living without air conditioning, especially at nighttime. I can't sleep when I'm sweating. I hate it, right? So there's this big ordeal. So we had to rent a new Airbnb, and then we had to pack the house up and try and get all the stuff out of the house in the Airbnb. But at the same time, we're also sorting out, we had to pack what they're going to take on our trip for 3 months for the summer, and then what's staying at my old place in Playa for storage. So it's like, it was a nightmare. So we got down at like 9 last night and gone to like, air conditioning. Like, yeah, it was a day. And then I woke up at 4 this morning, all ready to rock and roll, and everyone else, they just woke up now. They're not, my girlfriend's not a morning person. She's trying. She is trying, but she's definitely not a 5 a.m.er like me.
Yeah, well, they did studies on that. There's 4 types of people, like four zones, 4 sleepers. People go to bed early and naturally, and then it goes all the way up to the ones that are up till midnight, and then naturally wake up around 9 or 10. So it is like a circadian thing. And some people are just, obviously we know she's healthy and she's not like a partier, but some people, when they sleep till noon, it's not a circadian rhythm. They're just assholes. They were out doing drugs
Yeah.
all night.
Yeah. They went to bed at 4 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but there is something behind that, science behind that. But yeah, we've so on the over on the business side of things, we've had a lot rolling in, rolling out. We've got a lot of new contracts starting up, and this is just as a whole, like everybody has their own thing, like we described in the last show. We each have our own little projects going on that we have all of our joint projects together. That's through Big Click Energy and Mail Escorts and whatever other names we decide to come up with, ridiculous shit that we want to throw on an invoice. But like anybody else in the freelance world, whether you work as part of a team or on your own, there's always an opportunity to run into clients who are difficult, and they don't always start out that way. We have found that the ones who pay the less or the ones who try to get a discount in the beginning typically end up being the hardest ones to deal with. And that's been true every single time for me. I know it has for you and everybody we know. We haven't been proven wrong yet on that. It's always, this is our price. And they're like, well, what can you do with it? It's like, here we go,
100%. I mean, I had one client, and we can dive right into some stories and background stories. I mean, when I first got going in my freelancing, not when I first got going, sorry, 2 years ago when I was restarting it back up, because I did this a long time ago, and then I went back to work, and I was kind of doing it on and off and stuff like that. But I've really got full time, I would take jobs that I should have been charging a lot more, but I was trying to build in my portfolio, work on my skills. I was at a point in my life where, and we'll go into origin stories in another episode too after, but there was a point in my life where I was broke as fuck. Like, I mean, I would build a 10-page website for $500 just to have money coming in, right? So I had this client, and what she wanted to do, like she wanted to have this intricate booking system that allowed it to go to different people. They could book in different times, adjust. So it was a whole complex site. And I was like, I could do it, but we're going to, I said, the cost is going to be a lot more than what so you at least $1,000 to $1,500. And that was me being like, really lowballing this, right? Actually, my budget's $500. I'm like, you're going to get a $500 site then. Like, there's not much I can do with that because there's certain systems that you need to pay for monthly to have this running, right? Like the booking system was like $99 a month. The website fee was $50 a month, but she didn't have that kind of money. So I tried to do the best I can with, like Calvi and Wix, and get as cheap as an overhead monthly cost for her, but also being able to make me some money. And it was months and months and months of like, oh, now I need this done. I want this. And now like, can you do this? And like, get to a point where I was like, listen, like I need to, like, I can't be doing these updates for free. Like, you told me what you want done. You gave me all the information. I built the site. If you decide after that you want to change the price, then you can go into the website and change your price. Right? If you want to add in another service, you can go in there and add another service. But me being, the people pleaser that I used to be back in the day, and I'm getting a lot better at it now. I used to people please like, yeah, sure, not a problem. And, I do it 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. By the end of the week, it ends up being, a month, right? Or, at the end of the week, it ends up being, a couple hours or 3-4 hours. And so this client carried on for at least a year. And it was recently, within the last few months, she reached out again and asked for some work, and hey, I need this done, add a service. I'm like, okay, well, look, my hourly rate is now $100 an hour, so I'm going to charge you, if this is going to be 2 hours, I'm going to charge you $200. And she's like, well, you build my whole site for $500 a week. Yes, but that was at a time and point where I didn't respect my boundaries and didn't respect my price points, and I was taking on as much as I could. And so you got a great deal. So just because what I charged you 2 years ago was what I charged you, my skills, my abilities, and my worth has now improved tenfold. So if you want my service to do some work, I'm more than happy to do it for you, but you're going to be paying a higher price. And she's like, well, this is unacceptable. I'm like, well, then find someone else to do it for free, because I'm not doing this. I'm not just going to go in there and build all these additions, extra pages for nothing, right? Just because of the price you got then was, a really good deal, doesn't mean that's going to be carrying on in the future. I mean, it's called inflation. Prices go up. Prices are going up.
Yeah. And everybody has to start out that way, right? Because in the beginning, like there's this thing out there now where I think it's a lot of like the course culture, or like the bro culture. I don't want to blame it on just the bros, but a lot of us have to do with that. And where people are right out of the gate, they think they're worth a lot of money for something. Like, well, hey, so-and-so charged $200 for this. I can charge. I'm like, well, sometimes when you're new, you're not worth anything. So that we have to contend with that. I'm sure a lot of people just starting off, it's you just have to do it. You have to eat shit for a long time. When I say a long time, it could be a matter of months. It doesn't have to be a years, but you do have to like come in low. Then of course you're going to get the clients that are not as you're going to get the same level of clients, I guess, that they're just going to be shitty. They're going to make a bunch of extra requests. They're going to complain about things. And the thing is, when you're starting off, you need referrals and testimonials, and you need things for your portfolio. So you can't exactly tell them how you feel. So you're kind of trapped there as well. But it even happens further down the line. I mean, we're all kind of like been doing this for a while now in our own little pockets, our own little regard. Even now we run into difficult clients, and it's a balance because, I might have to cut this not what I'm saying now, but I'm like, do I want to talk about refunds? I don't want to make it so specific.
I say honestly, talk about refunds, because by the time this comes out, it could be a long way down the road, and I don't really care.
Take contracts for what they are. It's a piece of paper. People sign them. Do they hold up in court? Yeah, for the most part. Does anybody want to go after and actually file legal action on either side of it? Of course not, because that could take time, effort, and stress and money on both sides of it. So it's good to have that contract in place, if for nothing else, and just a guideline of like, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're not going to do, even if no legal action is eventually taken. And along with that, some people do have a refund clause. We typically do not, because work is still being performed. So, you may have the opportunity to terminate a contract if you're the client or if you're on our side of things. But if work gets performed and people get paid, and there's a lot of moving parts to these businesses, then you don't want to have to obviously give money back, especially if the person's getting a discount to begin with. But just dealing with clients in general that are difficult, especially the ones that, and again, red flag if they look at your initial price and they're like, well, can you do something about this? That's usually red flag number one. And then there's all that going on where like, okay, well, how do I deal with this person? Do I want to continue forward? And again, it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, well, we don't want to deal with people like that. But the thing is, we've all been in that position before where it's been like a dry couple of weeks and we're like, fuck, we need to have some money coming in. So we'll take clients. Yes, scarcity mindset. It affects everybody at every level of business. You never get away from it. So we've been there. We've done it. We've been not just working on our own, but working as part of our little group, our team, where we've like, shit, there's nothing going on next week. And instead of doing the smart thing and going to the beach, we're like, what do we do? Let's go put on a billboard and walk up and down Fifth Avenue and try to get some clients, kind of thing. But it is. So we're not sitting here and saying that we haven't done this shit or that we won't. Hell, I could do the same thing next week. I could take a job that I'm like, I don't know about this. But the thing is, when you're dealing with a client who's difficult, it's nice to have the contract in place, if for nothing else, than to have the outline of what the work is, deliverables should be, and when they're supposed to be delivered. It doesn't have to be super in-depth. It's always good to keep track of things. Obviously, communicating through email, WhatsApp. We use a platform called ClickUp, who are not sponsoring this, but hopefully someday they will. And it's a good way to keep track of like due dates and everything else. And you can archive old clients in there. So now I can pull somebody up that we worked on 6 months ago and be like, well, this is when everything was actually done. So just keeping track. There's so many platforms. We record all of our client meetings with different AI tools that transcribe and also give a summary. And again, none of this is going into it with the mindset that we're going to get screwed. It's just a record of everything, and it's nice to have. So anyway, I know we've had our own story of dealing with difficult clients, and we've had our own as a team. And truly, to work through it, you have to keep in mind, like, yes, there's 8 billion people on this planet, and there's plenty of other people that you can get work through, and that other clients that you'll meet and everything else. But at the same time, the world's a small place because there's social media and everything else. So you have to toe that line of like, okay, what did this person ask for? What are we going to give them? What are we willing to do to try to make this work? Which everybody should. Like, hey, what can we do to make this work? But if things go to shit, you also don't need somebody out there, spreading bad information, because you're not going to get a great testimonial from everybody. Even when you do great work for people, they're fucking lazy. Like, you could write their testimonial for them and they could be like, oh yeah, I'll get back to you. And they never do, just because the job's done. But you also don't want people out there actively working against you. So we run into that all the time, and I'm sure people at every level of business do, and especially when you're new, it just sucks, man. You just got to eat shit for a while.
I know. To touch on a few things you said there as well, one of the biggest things that you could possibly do when you're dealing with a difficult client, so this is probably a good segue we need to go into as well, is what to do when you have difficult clients, right? Because a lot of times, like, sometimes they're unavoidable. Sometimes there's the red flags that come up, like Justin said, where you're just like, they're trying to nickel and dime this. That's an immediate red flag. But I've had clients, we've had clients together where like, it seems like, too good to be true, right? Where it's like, this is going to be amazing. Like, these are working out. We click, we vibe together. And then like a month down the road, you're like, what the fuck did we get into? Like, oh my God. So some of them are unavoidable, but the best way to deal with the clients, right, is to be respectful, honest, and open, right? You have to treat them with all, even if they're coming out with you with like hateful speech and they say you're unprofessional or this is unacceptable or bullshit, whatever. Your responses back to that bad client or that client's giving you a lot of problems cannot be anything harsh and negative, because if they, again, like Justin was saying with the internet, they can screenshot it. They can cut their part out where then they screenshot yours and say, even though they say you are a piece of shit, and then you say, fuck you, and they do a screenshot, they cut out what they said, and they just say from Sean Lyons, fuck you. It's bad, right? So you got to make sure that your tonality, your vocabulary, the words you're using, you're coming at it from a very respectful way. You have to let them know, hey, look, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. You have to make sure you choose your wording right, because I actually had an old, not an old friend, a friend of mine that we used to be business together years ago, doing in a different industry. And there was numerous times where, someone, commented on his photo or his video or his advertisement being like, this is a scam. And his response was just attack. And I'm like, buddy, like you can't do this. Like your main source of income is through social media. And if people are screenshotting your personal messages to someone, calling them this, and this, and being aggressive and hostile, doesn't matter what they did or what they said. You're coming at it from you're the business owner. You need to be respectful, right? So best thing to do when you're dealing with a client like that is just make sure that you are as respectful as you can. You acknowledge their concerns. But the next thing as well is you have to set boundaries. You need to set boundaries, not just with yourself, but with the client themselves. Because like I said, that client that I had before where I just did everything that they asked and never charged them any money, because I didn't set any boundaries. I didn't say, hey, look, this is our contract. Anything after this is going to be extra. I just said, here's the contract. And then, in my contract, I didn't say any extra work will be extra time or extra money. I just left that blank open. So even though in my heart, I knew that I should be charging money, I didn't set those boundaries at the beginning. I didn't set those boundaries intentionally with myself, with the client. So when it came time to it, I just did everything for free. So make sure that you set those boundaries with yourself, set them with your client, put them in your contract. Like, this is the scope of work to be done. Anything outside the scope will be extra cost at X per, 50 an hour, 75 an hour. So good thing to have that in there. Because then again, if they come back like, well, no. It's like, hey, look, in that contract, it says anything outside of this, I charge extra.
And that's great advice. Even if it's in an email, like even if your contract is an email, which people use these days, is that actually maybe 1 out of 4 of the actual jobs that I do are probably like an official contract. A lot of it's just back and forth in an email, which could suffice also depending upon how far things need to go. And look, you don't have to be, if you're not confident in yourself yet, you're not to the level yet where you're like, hey, I'm drawing a line in the sand. You could even like water the language down a little bit and say, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do for this first payment. I'd love to keep working with you after that. Let's revisit, just so they know there's a line there somewhere. Like, hey, this work's going to end, and we're not sure how much it's going to cost going forward. But like at some point, like this is where we're going to stop, and this is like where we need to talk again about the money situation, which is a softer way of putting it. But managing expectations too, depending upon the personalities that you're dealing with, because this happens to us all the time. We're super busy. We have a lot of clients, so when a client task comes in for anybody on our team, it goes into a queue. Like if I get one today, chances are I'm not going to be able to get to it for 2 days or longer, depending upon what I'm doing. So on the client side of things, they may be thinking like, oh, I asked these guys for this today. They're probably going to do it this afternoon, because they're just like some clients think that you are their only, what am I trying to say? Some clients think that that's all we have to do is work for them, and we don't have like a list of other people. And that could become problematic as well, because you have to say like, but you have to spell it out for people. And I'm really bad at this. I'm super guilty at not managing expectations and not saying like, hey, you'll have this by Friday. And then sometimes I can't get it done, because there's that fallacy where we think we can get shit done, but we really can't. like, oh, that'll take me 10 minutes, and it ends up taking me all fucking day. So I'm really bad at that as well.
So talking about that, where some clients think that you are their only client, like there's like, oh, I need this done. I want it done. I need it done today. It's like, excuse me, right? So one of the best ways I learned to avoid a scenario like that is actually if they message you, whether it be Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, email, do not reply right away. Wait an hour. Even if you are just sitting down watching Netflix, you get an email from a client, do not reply for at least an hour, right? Because what happens then, if you start replying right away, it teaches them that if they need something, you're there, right? So even if you're not saying, so even if they don't know if you have other clients or not, it gives them the false pretense that you're available at any time to get stuff done. Another thing that I do too is if I ever get a phone call from a client, even if they've been a client of mine for 2 years, if they just call me, I decline. I will not answer that phone call. You want to talk to me?
Don't ever fucking cold call me. Don't ever cold call me.
Don't ever cold call me, you son of a bitch.
Like, who does that anymore anyway? But I know what you mean. Like, text me first. Like, hey, I got to call you. Like, what the fuck, man? You know?
Yeah. Right. Even if I am doing absolutely nothing and I could easily have that phone call, I do not answer that phone call. I say, hey, again, after the phone rings, I wait 20 minutes or so, maybe an hour. I say, hey, sorry, I missed your call. Is it important? They say, no, it's not. It's because a lot of times it's not even that important. They just want to call because they have a question, right? But my time is valuable. So if I'm having my time and my downtime, my alone time, whatever it might be, that is my time. So if you answer them right away, it teaches them that you're available whenever you want. So just wait an hour. Don't answer that call, right? And if they want to talk to you, send them your calendar. Like, hey, these are my availabilities, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Again, boundaries, intentions. See, I'm learning this the last couple of years. You need these.
Yeah.
Right? But then again, that'll also help with the clients. Because if you have a client that calls you all the time, that's a good sign they're a bad client. So again, if you start staying true to yourself and setting your own boundaries, be like, hey, I'm busy. It's Saturday. It's Sunday. Not right now. Whatever it might be. It teaches them to say, okay, because if you're a pushover, they're just going to steamroll.
There's this thing. I think it's from an old mob movie. It sounds like it's from a mafia movie. It probably isn't. Where it's like, you need to get to them before they get to us. Meaning, if you have an update for something or something for a client, you should let them know. I'll give you an example from today. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to. It's finally warmed up enough. It's like 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, I don't know what that is Celsius, but it's not.
It's not in real degrees. I don't know what it is in real degrees.
America, for some reason, we were going to switch to the other system.
Metric.
Like, yeah, when I was a kid, and then I guess they were like, nah, fuck it. But it's warm. It's warmish enough for us to actually get outside today and go to because we're by the lakes, to go to like a local beach. So point being, this morning I got up and I started texting like all of our clients, like, hey, I'm going to be out today. This is what I did for you over the weekend. This is what I'm going to do when I get back to my computer. And they're like, okay, great. So now if they have an issue or whatever, and it's always good to let people know when you're not going to be at work, but it also like, okay, they know like, okay, if I need something from him, it's not going to be this afternoon. This is what he's done. So if you just keep people updated, and some people are okay with text messages, WhatsApp, and emails. Some people need to have, if you got to make an Excel spreadsheet, which I hate those things, but if you have to make one, and make them like a dashboard so they can go look when you're not around. They don't have to ask you like, hey, and don't bury it down in an email thread somewhere. Say, look, when you want to know what the status of this project is, and again, they're not a sponsor of the show, but we use a tool called ClickUp, where there's due dates and there's like Gantt charts, and like any client, and don't count on the clients actually checking, but any client can actually go in and see for themselves like, oh shit, this is what's in progress. And there's a ton of platforms that do that, but you can do it with an Excel sheet. You can say, this is in progress. This is who's doing it. This is when it should be done. These are the notes. And that way, when you're not around, instead of them like, hey, what's going on with this? Or is this done yet? I can go to that shared sheet and have access to it and look. Now, does that guarantee that they're going to actually go look at the sheet? Of course not. They may just still ask you and bother you, but you should give every opportunity you can for them to figure it out on their own and know exactly what's supposed to be happening and when.
On the ClickUp, again, we should become a sponsor of these guys. We use it so much. You can actually separate, as you have like an internals sheet or platform of them, and then you have their version. So you have like parts where you can put, say, you and your graphic designer, your web designer, your CMO, project manager, you can have your own dashboard inside ClickUp. And then when the customer, your client, they can have access to only what you want them to see, right? So you can differentiate things. So if you want to add notes in there, like, God, this client sucks. They won't see it, right? You can have your own internal conversation, stuff like that. And it's good because like they only need to see progress of what's happening. They don't need to see all of our links and uploads and files and edits and website templates and stuff like that. They don't need to see that junk. They just want to see what updates they have. So ClickUp's great for that. It's really good.
It is. And we'll tag them in this. Once we publish this show, we'll tag them until they go back and they listen to the part about me being ultrasound by some hot chick rubbing hot goo on me in the dark. They may be like, whoa, we're not going to sponsor these guys. But yeah, no, it is a great platform. And there's a lot of platforms that do it. That one's, more one of the robust, that stupid word. But yeah, having one point of contact, one person to deal with the client or answer, it is a huge help. And then having a single place where they can go and look to see where things are at. Because a lot of times with clients, when they get upset, it's a communication issue. And it could be on their side of things as well, because some people just, depending upon what line of work they're in or who they are, how old they are, what their life experience is, sometimes they just fucking suck at communicating too. And so there's that whole barrier. And these days with remote work, like we all do now, we're not necessarily sitting in front of people all the time. So a lot is lost on that, on the nuance, and connection, which, I'm not saying meetings are necessary either. That's also, I think it's a time waste. I think we can all agree with that. However, there's other apps like Loom and other things. We're mentioning all these fucking products we're not getting any money from, but it's free. There are ways around actually having to go to meetings and do all these things.
Yeah, I know how much you hate meetings. You're like, I remember when you were down here in Mexico with us, so there was one day you had like 9 meetings back to back, and the majority of the meetings were, how come we're behind on stuff? And you're like, because I'm in these meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you, when you have a wall of meetings, you go to the first one, you don't remember shit from it, and then you roll into the next one, and by the time you end with the third or fourth meeting, you're consecutively like a house of cards. You're like a dominoes. Like, I don't remember shit from 3 meetings back, so it's a total waste of time. That's my opinion. There's very few times. Maybe that initial client meeting, it's always good to put a name to the face, have a conversation, which we all do, discovery calls, and that's another thing. Discovery calls or initial client meetings, those are usually free, because why would you charge for that unless it's like some big ordeal? And there's no harm in that. And you could also, like we said, use an AI tool to record and then have some notes, and then you can, and then out of that discovery call, and I know we're getting a little off track here, but it kind of goes back to the dealing with difficult clients thing, just to make sure they don't become difficult. So if you record that discovery call and you kind of say, hey, let them talk. Tell me about your brand. Like, if you were selling this to me right now, what would be your pitch? Even if they're not great at it, it's their product. They know their product or service better than anybody. They should be the ones trying to convey what it is that they're trying to sell. Even if they're not great at marketing, they still know what they do, and they love their products. So recording all of that, the point I'm getting at is that you can take that recording, if the contract or the project goes forward, and you can take that summary and use it to build your contract. That way you're not going back and like, hey, what were we talking about? What did we need to do? So you can save yourself a lot of steps by just, recording everything. It also protects you. And look, it's a small fraction of clients that actually become difficult. And it sucks though. But again, one loudmouth out of 100 clients, one that sucks can cause a lot of problems, because those are the ones that comment and say things. Most people, when they're happy with your service, like we mentioned, you can ask them for a testimonial. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But the ones that are upset have a tendency to, just like anybody on social media, you only hear from the shitbags.
100%. What was my favorite saying? No one texts faster than a pissed off female. So the same thing goes in marketing, right? No one reviews quicker than a pissed off client, right? So it's very easy to do. I think one of the biggest takeaways I probably had from just dealing with terrible clients would be, and this is going to be good advice for everyone listening as well. If a client becomes very, very difficult, and let's say, because a lot of the contracts we do, say a retainer is $5,000. Well, we do 20 or 50% up front, $2,500 up front. These are just ballpark numbers, right? And then after we've completed our project, we get the other half. So if you have a contract like that, or a client where, half up front, half when it's done, and you start to become very difficult and it's causing you a lot of headache and stress and stuff like that, the easiest thing to do is just walk away, terminate the contract, right? Even if because the problem is what I've learned a lot with through marketing and through business and being an entrepreneur, traveling and stuff like that, whatever mode your mindset is in is going to portrayed for the entire rest of the day, the rest of the week. So if you have a client that is constantly just causing you grief and anxiety and stress, that's going to overflow into all your other projects, right? And also, when you're holding on to that client because, I want the other half of that money for, work that we're going to have done, that eliminates you having the ability to attract the ideal client. Your mindset is in stress and panic mode. So you're not even able to attract a better client, right? Because you're chasing the money, right? And it happens to me, like we said, it happens still today. There's that scarcity mode, mindset that comes in. But what happens is imagine how little scarcity there would be if you stopped worrying and dealing with the negativity of that client and you just, cut ties like, hey, look, this isn't working out. Here's all the assets that I've built for you so far. We just need to end things like this. Like, I know you still owe money. I still owe a bit of work done. I want to terminate the contract. So just don't be afraid to terminate that contract. Don't be afraid to walk away from a client, because as soon as you let go of that negativity, it opens up so many more possibilities, and even gives you the time to start looking for a better client. Because like Justin said, it's only a fraction that are bad, but like there's 8 point something billion people in the world. Like there is a staggering number of people that need your services, that want your services. But if you're focusing on the negative client and your mindset's focusing on making them happy, trying to solve problems and all this, there's people out there that are going to pay more than they are, going to cause you less stress than they are. They make you happier than you are right now. So even though it's hard to get past that scarcity mindset, you really have to learn when to either say no or when to let go. And once you learn the ability to let go, it's huge, right? So if you let go of your fears, let go of your anxiety, let go of the scarcity, let go of that client, letting go is one of the hardest things to do. It is, right? In any aspect, right, of life. But letting go of a client can be tough too, because again, they might owe you money still, right? Or if you're like me, like I hate starting something and not finishing it. I hate it, right? Like it drives me nuts. Like, oh God, it's almost there, right? Like if I build a puzzle and there's 3 pieces left and just looking at it, it would drive me insane not to put this piece back in. But if you're able to let go of that anxiety, let go of the, this isn't serving me anymore, you get rid of that, opens up the world for you.
It's the mental overhead, right? It's like you build up, you get ready. Like there's a lot of shit that goes into a new client before we even get started. There's proposals that need to be typed up. And it doesn't matter if you're copying the last one. There's still things that everybody's got to meet, like on the internal team, like, hey, can we make this happen? Who's going to do what? How much should we charge? And then there's whatever platform you're using or however you keep track of your project management, that has to be set up. So all these things get engaged, and it's always cranking over in your mind, especially with the prospect of a new client or a new account. There's a dopamine hit. You're excited. So you work yourself up. It's kind of like just being in a bunch of mini relationships, and having a bad client's like being in a shitty one, because you're focused, you're in a bad mood, you're focused on all the negativity from that client. You want to try to make it work because, like you mentioned, you don't want to not finish something and you want to give them the best you can. But what you said is totally right. If you get rid of that one, even if you're like, oh, I don't know if I should get rid of this person or get rid of this client or not, if you do that, later that afternoon, that energy, you could go out and get 2 amazing clients. But the thing is, when you're in it, you're like, oh, I don't want to give this up. And then it's like being in a shitty relationship. It's like, wait a second. Yeah. If I spend X amount more time with this person, who are all the great people out there I could be meeting right now? It's the same thing. So yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to give up on that. I also like what you said about charging half up front, or like trying to, which is something that we practice, because you definitely want the clients to have a little bit of skin in the game, because it kind of gets them like, oh shit, I paid for this. This is serious. And again, it doesn't always work out, because some may want, if things go south, and some may want some of that money back. But again, you have to cover your expenses, no matter how big your team is. Even if it's just you've got platform expenses, you've got time. Chances are you spent, by the time a contract gets signed, there are several steps that have to happen. So yeah, it's always good to have them have a little bit of skin in the game and everything else. So.
Well, especially for our line of industry, like, I mean, refunds, I understand when it comes to like a physical product, right? So if you go to McDonald's and you order a Big Mac and it's missing the meat, or it's fucking not even in there, you can, hey, this is not what I ordered. I want a refund back. But when it comes to
shitty slippers, order some shitty slippers, some manatee slippers.
They're amazing. Right? But physical products, right? Clothing, computers, cups, like that's something that's refundable, because it's you bought a product, you want that product back. When it comes to anything like remotely online, if you want a refund for your money, how are you going to refund me my time? So you have to look at it that way, right? So that's why I don't really believe in refunds, because like I still put in 20, 30, 40, how X amount of hours into coming up, team meetings and talking to our creative. How much is it going to cost? Can we do, as Justin was saying, putting up the spreadsheets, the costs, coming with proposals, contract. That's before we even get any money in. Then once we get the contract, we get half the deposit that is, they're actually paying for our VAs and our creators, and start building and locking in, having team meetings and client meetings, stuff like that. So yeah, let's say, it didn't work out. Our mindsets are different, whatever the possible reason is, you want your money back. How do you get me my time back? Right.
Yeah.
And if they came up with an answer like, oh, okay, well, I'll send you on a retreat for a week into a yoga. Sure, that's great, that's awesome. But
Yeah.
I'm all for giving you your money back. But how do you refund me my time? Because I get it. I get you want your money back. Awesome, but I can't get that time back, because the time that I just spent on your project is something that I could have been spending on a different project, or going to the gym, or my health, or spending with my girlfriend, or whatever it might be. There's so many other things I could be doing with that time that could be productive or healthy, or whatever it might be. So how do I get that back? So that's why I don't believe in refunds. In our line of work, and anything on like entrepreneurial design, websites, whatever it is, how do you refund time? You can't.
And chances are there's probably some deliverables involved as well that you have to be mindful of, like how you're going to because I mean the fair thing to do is to give them everything you've done up to that point, make sure they have access. But yeah, you can't get your time back and all the things that go along with that. And hopefully some people would understand. Not everybody does. And again, those aren't the kind of people you want to work with anyway. Easy to say, yes, of course. We've all eaten shit in the beginning. That's just the way things go with this line of work, and not just this line of work, but a lot of remote jobs and entrepreneurship in general. Yeah, it's just all you can do is just keep your processes tight, have a statement of work or a contract, have a project management tool that you can keep track of things, make sure you don't delete. Yeah, set boundaries and expectations, set a communication schedule. It just from the beginning, say, hey, look, these are the hours of the day that you'll hear back from me. You can say, hey, feel free to text me and email me anytime, because, some people, they have an idea and they don't want to wait around. So you don't want to tell them do not reach out to me. Clients can text me on the weekends if they want. That's totally fine. Doesn't mean I'm going to get back to them, but they're like, if something pops into your head, hey, shoot it off. That's fine. But these are the days and times I'm going to get back to you. These are the days that you're going to get your updates, whether that's through a video or whatever. And these things are pretty easy. And look, once you develop that policy for the first client, just put it in a doc or some shit. And then when the next one comes along, you just copy and paste it. It's not like you have to come up with a special thing every single time. So again, I know this is all easy for us to say now. And the reason we know all this shit is because I fucked it up so many times. So many times I made these mistakes. I know you have to.
So many. So many. So I think, honestly, I think that's a great place to leave it at that. We're at a good 45 minutes for episode number 2. I know the first one went an hour and a little bit, but I think leaving people with, pointers, tips, insights, intention setting, boundaries. I mean, that's a good place to leave, because you ended off on something that they can take home and understand and read. Oh yeah, intentions, boundaries. That's a good place. So I appreciate everyone for listening and or watching us two idiots talk about our life stories and what we've done. I mean, don't trust me. You can take our advice or not, but I'm a hard learner kind of person. So be like, Sean, like my dad, Ellen knows this. Don't touch the cigarette lighter. Say, burn your finger. Oh, okay. Burn my finger. Yeah, he was right. I learned the hard way. So take it, leave it, guys.
You made all these mistakes several times before, so use that to your advantage and learn from our dumb shit. And we do read every comment on the show here, the YouTube comments. I mean, so we will get back to you if you have any questions. Please be kind and try not to be too brutal with anything. But we do get back to everybody, and we appreciate it. And to be continued.